family people, if you don't want a minivan because you think it's uncool or something, you're going to want a three-row crossover, and here we have three of the newest and best on the market.
That's right, we've got the Subaru Ascent, the Volkswagen Atlas, and the Honda Pilot, alongside our resident moody teenager Sebastian here, who will help us determine which one of these things are cool and which one fit in with his not-so-active lifestyle.
Whatever. Can I go now?
You said you were going to help us.
He didn't get his allowance this week. He's super moody.
With kids these days.
I freaking hate kids.
When it comes to three-row crossovers, the rear seats are a major part of the equation, and we've got our good friend, the youthful-minded Sebastian, to show us all of the fancy features in the brand new Subaru Ascent. Isn't that right?
Whatever, Dad. I can do it myself.
Sebastian Seat Stories.
All right, hey guys, here I am for Sebastian's Seat Stories. We're in the Subaru Ascent in the middle row where the seats are actually pretty comfortable. It's got lots of cup holders for my Monster, always drink punch. It's got a bunch of USB ports for all of my, for my phone, for my Switch, for all sorts of stuff. And it's got these really handy handles, for the getting into the back seat and the front seat. It's got USB ports back here. I would say that one of the problems is that they're only on that side, so I might have to share with my sister. And these seats, there's not a lot of comfy space, so when me and my squad are rolling out, it's like kind of uncomfortable. Anyway, the seats move forward really easily, and yeah, I can get out pretty easily. So don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, guys. Yeah, just whatever, hit me up, comment. Yeah, thanks, man.
Isn't it nice that Sebastian is now out of the car and we can actually take it for a spin and give people the information that they probably want to know in terms of the rest of the interior of the vehicle and the powertrain?
Yeah, so now that he's at his Fortnite tournament, we can really talk about what this Subaru does really, really well. And I think one of those things is the interior. And isn't it hilarious that this Ascent has the nicest interior of the three?
I mean, it really is interesting when you take a look at all the other brands that both Honda and Volkswagen are associated with, and all of the other materials and product bins that they can reach into to supply their vehicles, and it turns out that they're still not luxurious enough in comparison to the Subaru.
Yeah, and so Subaru's interiors used to be like a really big weakness for them, but now that's not really a concern. Like, this is a really nice, luxurious interior, and I think they're doing a really good job.
I will admit, I don't think it's the nicest designed cabin. I mean, the layout is pretty simple, but the materials are perfect. And I really appreciate real clickety buttons in here and none of those fake touch buttons that the other cars have.
Yeah, having real buttons makes it a lot more user-friendly right off the bat. Like, there's almost no learning curve to using this infotainment system, and it's easy to use when you're driving too, so it's not distracting like the other ones.
And in terms of space, this car fits right in between the Atlas and the Pilot. It's not as spacious as the Atlas, which is massive, but it is more spacious than the Pilot, which is great.
And it's really comfortable. I mean, these captain's chairs are amazing. The ones in the second row are also really comfortable.
Right.
And they have this amazing brown leather. It just looks really good. It looks luxurious, and it's pretty comfy. It's got a lot of amenities as well. I mean, Sebastian said that the third row isn't that great. It's okay for emergency use, but you can slide the second row fore and aft to give those rear seat people a bit more leg room.
And while this doesn't have a lot of under tray storage like the Pilot does, it does have a special dedicated area for the tonneau cover, which I think is pretty cool.
That is pretty handy, and I do like that there's a lot of useful storage cubbies everywhere. Also, can't talk about the Ascent without mentioning the 19 cup holders.
We gotta mention what's under the hood. A brand new engine, a 2.4 liter turbocharged Boxer 4 that makes 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. And on paper, that doesn't sound very good. At least it doesn't sound as good as the rivals in this comparison. But in use, I never felt like the car was slow.
No, it actually doesn't feel underpowered at all. And when the Ascent first came out, I thought like, oh, there's no way a four-cylinder is going to feel good in a car that's this big. But I was really surprised. It's actually fine. Getting up to speed is fine. Passing people is okay. And even the CVT is not that bad. I found it pretty intuitive.
And I mean, this does come with standard all-wheel drive, and that CVT is a very important part of the powertrain. It is maybe the weakest part of the powertrain. It's a little jumpy off the line and can result in some really weird herky-jerk situations when you're trying to get somewhere quickly and then don't realize just how how eager this car is to get going. But more often than not, it will rev up and then it will nicely calm back down, so you don't always hear that whininess of the CVT.
Yeah, but also the car is just really good at ironing out any outside noises, and that includes from the CVT. And the suspension is kind of a nice middle ground between the Atlas that is a little bit crashy and then the Pilot that is a little bit too soft. So funny enough, I think this Ascent drives better than both of those two. It feels decent in a corner, and yet, you know, it doesn't get all crazy over rough roads. Like, it irons it out pretty nicely. So it's just a really good balance.
And then when it comes to pricing, which is a very important part of family vehicles, I find that the Ascent just fits in really perfectly with the sort of vehicle that they've got here. It's not as expensive as both the Atlas and the Pilot, but it offers just as much amenities, a much more gorgeous interior, and it's even more fuel efficient, getting 27 miles per gallon on the highway.
Yeah, and on top of that, even though it's cheaper, it still comes with all the tech that you expect. So, I mean, it has stuff like adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, and that adaptive cruise control system is really good. Like, everything operates really smoothly, it feels intuitive.
And I especially like the fact that when you come to a stop sign and somebody in front of you pulls away, the car will remind you to get going as soon as that car gets away from you. One of the advantages of this car is, despite it looking big and actually being quite spacious, these ginormous windows give the car a really very good feeling of size. It doesn't feel as large as it is. That's what I really like about it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel cumbersome to drive. Even though I was in little parking garages and like driving it through the city, it didn't feel like it had such a big footprint, and I really appreciated that.
And then there's some features that are pretty interesting. I mean, we've got X mode, which is handy for driving off-road. It really, you know, unifies the stability system and the all-wheel drive system. And then we've got other things like heated seats and ventilated seats. Now, those ventilated seats are a little bit different than other ventilated seats in other vehicles.
Yeah, so instead of blowing cold air at your body, it like sucks air away from your body to keep it cool, which is cool, and I like it.
Interesting.
It's literally cool.
All right, now let's go and see Sebastian. Let's see how he's doing. I think we're going to be jumping in the Pilot next. What do you think?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
Hey, Sebastian. Do you want to do another Sebastian stories for the Pilot here?
God.
But it's so cute with your technology. How many subscribers do you have?
You're embarrassing me.
Okay, good luck, Sevi.
Hey guys, here we are for episode 2 of Sebastian's Seat Stories. We're in the Pilot. It's pretty good, actually. It's pretty comfortable. It's not as nice as the Ascent, but it does have all sorts of stuff so that you can play retro games. I've got my Raspberry Pi set up, and it's pretty sweet. In the back seat, it's way more comfortable too. Like, there's way more room. I've got room for my knees, but I don't have any USB ports. But the ones in the front are fast charging, so that's pretty cool, I guess. The seats go forward really quickly, and you can totally crush your little sister, so it's great. It's awesome. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave some comments. Tell me what you want to see. All right, thanks guys. Later.
Yeah, so we're in the Pilot now. It has a 3.5 liter V6. It has 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, but it feels pretty slow, I must say, and it drives very big.
Right. And this also comes with a brand new 9-speed automatic transmission. Actually, something that I didn't find got in the way when you're driving this vehicle at all. It's a very seamless transmission. But the rest of the car needs some serious attention if you want something that doesn't feel like just an everyday appliance.
Yeah, so I actually don't hate the way it drives. It is very floaty and it's very comfortable. Like, you can't feel any of the bumps in the road. The problem for me is in how unresponsive everything feels. So like the steering is pretty loosey and unresponsive. The throttle, it seems like it's not even connected to the engine sometimes. It's just so slow.
And that's funny. I remember when the first time I started driving this car, I thought that it was in that eco mode, and it turns out it wasn't. It was driving in the normal standard mode, and it just took me forever to get accustomed to the way this throttle feels. But one thing Honda has absolutely nailed is the family-friendly nature of the layout of this vehicle. I mean, look at all of these cubby areas. There are 3 shelves in each door pocket and each door panel alone.
Yeah, and these cubbies here are big enough to fit like an entire laptop or a purse if you wanted to.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It also has a ton of safety equipment, just like the other vehicles in this class, but I know that when we were discussing the way the Subaru Ascent feels in terms of the eyesight technology, it was really natural feeling. It felt like it was augmenting the driver's style. But this one seems to be a little bit more hands-on. Basically, it interferes a little bit more often than I was expecting it to.
Yeah, and the warnings they're very jarring. I find that they go off when you have full control of the car and you know what you're doing, but then it's always just like, wait a second, make sure you're being safe. And you're like, I got this car, it's okay.
It's not as bad as other Hondas, but it's still not nearly as natural feeling as other cars.
Right, and so in general, I feel like this is the most minivan-like of the three.
Yeah.
Like, it drives really big. I mean, this steering wheel is enormous.
Yeah, it feels like a bus.
Yeah, and I don't hate it. It's actually kind of nice, but if you wanted something with better driving dynamics, this might not be the one that you want to pick.
And it's also not the cheapest model either. These ones can be pretty expensive, getting close to $50,000 when fully loaded.
And that's the most expensive out of all of them, right? I think the Volkswagen gets up there, but the Subaru is definitely cheaper.
I mean, when you think about it, you've got a vehicle that's not the most luxurious, that doesn't have the most space. It's not the most fun to drive. Sure, it's pretty family friendly, but you're also paying way too much for it, and I don't think that bodes well for the Pilot.
I agree.
So let's check out one more vehicle. That's the Volkswagen Atlas, which honestly, it looks huge. Hey Sebastian, I know you're getting set up in this Atlas here, but we really got to talk about this streaming stuff. I mean, can you really make a career out of this kind of stuff?
Whatever, Dad. You're like $1 million.
Come on, you don't need to be so mean here.
You don't get it. Let me shoot my show, okay? Get out of here.
Okay, all right. Also, I'm not your dad.
All right, hey guys, we're here for part 3 of the trilogy. We're here in the Volkswagen Atlas. It's pretty boring in here, honestly. It looks all right, I guess. There's no entertainment. There's just like that and like some kind of a sunroof. I don't know, that's weird. There isn't a place to put my Monster Energy, so that's kind of annoying. You can put it on the side, but I don't know, I don't like that. The back seats are pretty good. They're pretty comfortable, but there are only 2 of them, which is weird. There is a cool feature where you can move the seat forward, and if you've got like a baby seat or whatever, it won't fold it, but I don't know. I don't know why you'd want that. It's okay, I guess, but you know, it's not the greatest. So yeah, don't forget to hit that comment button and hit the subscribe.
Okay.
2 down, 1 more to go. This is the Volkswagen Atlas. And this is a ginormous 3-row crossover. I don't know what it is about this thing, but it just feels so much bigger and beefier on the road than the Ascent and the Pilot do.
So that big size actually has a lot of benefits, and one of them being is that there is a ton of cargo space and passenger space. So that 3rd row actually has a ton of space in it, even though it only has room for 2. Whoever's sitting back there, they don't have to chop off their legs, so it's okay.
And then when you fold down all of these seats, you actually get a ton of storage space in this vehicle. It feels like a utility vehicle. It feels like a commercial van.
Yeah, it's way more than the other 2 though. So if you want maximum practicality, this might be the better choice, but it's lacking in a few other areas.
Yeah, I mean, if it feels like a commercial vehicle because of how much space it has, it also feels a bit more, let's say rugged based on the interior materials. I mean, the hard plastics, the mix of plastics.
There's a lot of plastic
and
going on
just
here.
the random bits and pieces that you find inside this vehicle do not give off any sort of luxurious vibes or even premium vibes, and that's something that's really lacking in this car.
Even the seats aren't as nice, the leather's not as nice as what you can get in the other 2. One thing I do really like about the interior is the virtual cockpit.
Yeah.
But it's expensive. But it looks good, and it shows you a lot of interesting information, and it looks high-end. But that's like the only part of this car that looks fancy.
I agree with you on that. The virtual cockpit is pretty much the killer app of the Volkswagen Atlas. And it's like maybe the only reason besides the space to pick one up. But there are some really rough elements on the powertrain and the suspension and handling. I mean, I quite like the V6. It's very smooth, but sometimes the engine feels like it's a bit too jumpy as well, much more so than the way the Subaru feels. And then worse than that is that this car is very stiff, unnecessarily so. You can feel almost everything on the road, and that just doesn't feel right in a family vehicle.
No, I definitely feel like for a car like this, it should be a lot smoother over rough roads. It doesn't need to be able to tackle corners really good, so I'm not sure why Volkswagen made this suspension this stiff.
That crashness also penetrates the cabin. It makes the vehicle sound much louder than it is. And then, you know, in comparison to the Pilot, the Atlas just doesn't seem as family friendly. It doesn't have as big of a storage area here, and then on the door panels there's fewer there's fewer shelves. And then finally, this vehicle as well, like the Pilot, can top in at around $48,000, which is
that's a ton of money
a
for
lot
this
of money.
class.
Yeah, and again, like I said, there doesn't seem to be, besides the virtual cockpit and the tons of storage, there doesn't seem to be a lot that you're getting for your money. This interior in particular is a real sore spot for the Atlas, and I can't wait for them to refresh the interior of this vehicle because it's just not quite where I want it to be yet.
I mean, like, this is a new car, though. Like, this has only been here for, what, like a year now?
Yeah.
And the fact that it's already needing a refresh really says a lot about that Volkswagen should have tried harder with this car to make a more luxurious interior, especially if they were charging those prices for it. Okay, so now that we're done, why don't we catch up with Sebastian and whatever Twitch stream Nintendo thing he's up to and see which one he likes the best.
All right, fine. You really value his opinion on this?
You know what? He might seem like a useless turd, but sometimes he has important things to say. And we gotta treat him like an adult. That way he'll really like come into his own one day.
That's right. I think you're onto something. There you go. 3 brand new SUVs. Sebastian, what did you think?
Whatever. The Atlas sucks. The Pilot's boring.
Come on, Sebastian. You said you were going to help us out. What did you think of the Ascent?
It's okay, I guess.
What Sebastian is trying to say is that the Ascent has won our 3-row crossover comparison because it drives better than these two, it's more luxurious, and it's more affordable at the top end.
It's also pretty spacious for growing kids. And who would have guessed? Teenagers aren't that useless after all. I'm pretty proud of you, Sebastian.
Really?
Nope.
Hate this family!
He'll grow out of it.
It's just a phase.